Last night we did a show that was put into production when the Zimmerman trial verdict came out. And everyone was being called a racist, and I was on vacation. And I called my producers, and I said to Tiffany, Tiffany, would you do me a favor? Would you go and find the best psychiatrists and psychologists in the world on race, and find out if there is any way to tell who a real racist is? Is there some clinical way of deeming somebody a racist? And I really didn't know what she would come back with. I didn't know if it would come back at all. And I said, let's look at the anatomy of a racist. Let's look at some of the biggest racists and what do they tell you? And so we looked at Hitler, Farrakhan, and David Duke. These were all different people, different times. They hated different people for different reasons. What do they all have in common? Well, what's interesting is when you look at a racist, almost always they hate the Jews. That's the one thing that is universal. They hate the Jews. That's strange.
That's fascinating. It's true. I mean, Farrakhan and Hitler, you'd think,
wouldn't agree with each other.
Farrakhan and David Duke, they shouldn't agree with each other on anything, but they do agree that they hate the Jews.
Right. All three of them agree that it's the Jews that are the problem.
Jeez.
So you know that it is true hatred, and you know that it's true evil when it always links to that. Now, the race leader, the Hitler or the Farrakhan, the first thing that they have in common is that they look at people as groups and not as individuals. So in other words, all Jews are greedy. All whites are oppressors. All blacks are lazy. It's not that particular black person, white person, Jewish person is lazy, greedy, or an oppressor. It's all of them are like that, That's the first sign. The second is no objectivity. So in other words, and Zimmerman trial is a great one for this. Let me give you the first two in the Zimmerman trial. The cops acted stupidly. That's a sign. The cops just don't want to do it because the cops are the oppressors. The whites own that community, and they're the oppressors. There's your first sign. Your second sign is no objectivity. He comes in with a bloodied face, and Zimmerman is still somehow or another the oppressor. No objectivity. There's no evidence at all. In fact, his best friend or BFF on Twitter is testifying, and this is one of the most incredible things in this testimony that I never heard. And it was on Piers Morgan. We played it last night. She was testifying that Trayvon wasn't trying to kill him. He was just trying to bash his head. And in our neighborhood, in our culture, there's a difference between trying to kill somebody and just giving them a good bashing.
Isn't that pretty amazing? He was supposed to know that and understand that and just take it and then allow him to bash his head in for a while.
Right.
And then everything would have been fine.
Okay, that's
crazy.
That's Trayvon Martin's best friend.
Yeah.
That was her defense. He wasn't trying to kill him. He was just trying to bash him, teach him a lesson. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm not up on your culture then. The American culture is you don't bash people. So I don't know the rules of your culture. What culture is that? That would be the black culture, she would respond. Wait a minute. Is that racist? Because dare I ever say white culture? Dare I ever quote the president in his own book when he talks about the white culture? Okay. So no objectivity. No matter what the facts are, it doesn't matter to anyone. And then the third sign of a race leader, a race divider, or a racist is power through conflict. So are they gaining power through their conflict? Are they gaining power? Do they gain power by lifting people up and saying, you can do it, we're better than this? Or are they gaining power through conflict and saying it's them? That's the anatomy of a racist. Those three things. Do they see the individual or do they see the group? When you really look at this, now again, And we quoted the doctors, and I don't know which doctors they were, but we quoted the doctors last night and showed you there's some of the leading experts from around the world on race relations and racists. So these are the three things that they gave us. And when you look at these things, in many ways, you're describing many in this administration. Does the president look at people and individuals, or does he look at the collective salvation? Does he look at the collective? We know he looks at the collective. That's all he ever talks about is the collective. Does he say the police, we all know the police act stupidly? Well, that's looking at all police in one light. Not to say that there aren't good police officers and bad police officers. He's saying the police are bad, looking at them collectively. Now, you can say that the police are good and look at them that way collectively, and that's not so bad because you're not gaining power of the conflict. And it's also not just one thing. No objectivity. What did the president say after the trial? The one thing that I didn't hear anybody pick up on, and when I came home, this was my big point, was remember that little speech he walked out and gave? Well, he knew that one off the cuff. He didn't need a teleprompter. He could go and deliver a 20-minute speech on that one easily. But what did he say? He gave a lecture to the American people that you don't understand. You don't understand the prism that people of my race look through the lens and see this event through historic eyes. Well, that's not being objective, Mr. President. That is not being objective. That is not looking at the facts of this individual case. Again, you're looking at it as a group. You're looking at it as a set of facts that span decades, if not 2 centuries. I'm sorry, Mr. President, that's not the way it works. You have to be objective. So, problem number 2 in the anatomy of a racist is no objectivity. And then 3, power through conflict. Are they setting you and telling you, you won't do it unless you follow me? You won't make it unless you follow me. You don't know what they're all about. Follow me. I've told you from the beginning, I don't want any followers. I don't want any zombies. And I'm happy to say we don't have robots that listen to this program. I tell you all the time, do your own homework. Don't trust me. I don't ask you for your trust. Don't trust me. Do your own homework. Stand on your own 2 feet. You can do it. One of the things that is most important to me, and it was the whole point of The Man in the Moon, is I'm not the author. You are. You're the author of your own life. You're the author of your own destiny. You write the next chapter on what happens, and you're writing it right now. So there's your anatomy of a racist. They see groups and not individuals. 2nd, no objectivity. And 3, power through conflict. Now, then you have to add one more thing to it. Because history repeats itself, let's look at the cycle of hate. And let's use Germany. First, there's a real event. And the real event in Germany was the First World War and the Treaty of Versailles. And what happened with the Treaty of Versailles? Treaty of Versailles was jamming a punitive treaty onto Germany, make them pay. Well, that never works. And so it set things off and set the German people off onto the wrong track. And it collapsed their economy. The Weimar Republic begins to collapse economically. So there's your real event. The Bolsheviks come in. Those were Jewish Bolsheviks from Russia. They come in, and they are, remember, Karl Marx was from Germany. They come in, and they set up a government, a Bolshevik government in Munich. That causes all kinds of problems, and the fascists start to rise. And the fascists are saying, all Jews are bad because all Jews are Bolsheviks. And yet they came in, the fascist came in and said, no, all Jews are bad. Well, wait a minute. What about this guy? He was highly decorated. He's Jewish. Doesn't matter. All Jews are bad. And they start to sow the seeds of discord. But it takes a second event to be able to really set it on fire. And I think that's what our race baiters of today are trolling for. They're trolling for that second event. Now, that second event could have been something like Zimmerman, could be something small. Could start with a guy who's just got it definitely wasn't a hot dog cart over in the Middle East, but whatever that cart was over in Algeria, or was it?
Not a good business choice in the Middle East.
Yeah,
to open up a hot dog
Tunisia.
cart.
Tunisia. He's got this halal cart of some sort. He sets himself on fire. That was the event. So it could be from setting yourself on fire at a cart, or it could be a crisis of the economy. I think that's what's coming with us, is an economic crisis. And when the economy is bad, as we found out during the Woodrow Wilson administration, the economy was bad. The KKK, the membership numbers went through the roof. Soon as the economy was good, the race relations went back to normal. And we almost wiped out the KKK in the Roaring 20s. So what is the event? What is the crisis that will blow those seeds or those embers that racists have been sowing? What is the billows for that? It will be a crisis of some sort that will set off a race war or some sort of a chaos in the streets. That's the cycle of hate. And I am convinced that we are now just waiting for the crisis. We have already had the event. The events are nonstop. Our event in our country was slavery, and it has never been allowed to heal. You don't ever hear anybody talk about Booker T. Washington. Nobody's ever quoting Booker T. Washington or Frederick Douglass. They should be, but they don't, because those guys were healers. They were not picking at the scab. They were trying to heal the scab. The only ones that are ever quoted are those who were picking at the scab. And that's what they're trying to do with Martin Luther King, to make him a scab picker. He wasn't. He was a healer, but they're trying to change his image. The seeds are being planted every day, and everything that doesn't become the crisis just becomes another seed, another ember that is waiting to set the entire house on fire. When we hit a crisis, that's when those people who are the race leaders, those who are already in a position of power, take us to places none of us ever want to go. Be aware. Do your own homework. Watch The Blaze TV. You can find that up at theblaze.com or at glenbeck.com. You can find that monologue yesterday, and I did a whole show with college students and had a quick conversation afterwards with them that you'll see also in the episode. It was last night's episode at The Blaze TV, theblaze.com.